All right. We are back here at Song of the Day, coming to you from the Rock Cave. I'm your host, Mark Pierce. As usual, it is Saturday. Hope you're all doing well, right? What are we talking about today? I had a lot of options for today, but I'm excited for today, and some of you will be excited to share as well, because there's lots we can talk about with this artist. And I'm going to let you guys do that today. Today, February 6th, would have been Bob Marley's 76th birthday, so we got to talk about him, and we could probably talk a long time about him. So let's just do a little brief discussion, and then we'll go from there. Again, he would have been 76 today. Imagine all the music he would have made by now. He died in May of 1981 at age 36. Born in 9 Mile, Jamaica, he moved to Trenchtown when he was 12. He started making music pretty early as a school kid. Was friends with Bunny Wailer as a child, and when they moved to Trenchtown, his mother had a baby with her father, and so they lived together and they started making even more music. And by the time he was 17, he made his first 4 songs that were released locally, and then he was off and running with the Wailers, which included early on Peter Tosh, Bunny Wailer, Junior Braithwaite, all these people, right? So they were basically a band putting out some music. They had a hit that went to number 1 in Jamaica in 1964, pretty early as far as I was concerned, called Simmer Down. And then by 69, the late 69, 70, the music that was coming out of Jamaica was getting kind of slower and slower in rhythm, and becoming that, reggae ska style that we all know and love. He was signed to CBS Records in 1972 out of London, and assigned to their Island label, which had Peter Tosh, but he had just left the label and they were looking for somebody singing the same kind of music. So they went back. He was in London. He went back. And they recorded Catch a Fire, their first album, and that was the first time a reggae band had ever been exposed and had access to the recording equipment that was as up to date as it was. So that was a pretty big deal, and that record did quite well. It was followed up by Burnin' later that year, which had their song I Shot the Sheriff, which of course famously Bruce Springsteen heard. A friend gave him that record to listen to, thinking he'd like that album. He heard that song and he famously did a cover of that. 70s, obviously that's when he was most prolific. He did spend 2 years in exile in London. He moved to London from 76 to 79, and he was in exile. He wrote and recorded Exodus and Kaya there, and by 78 they had 11 albums. So and a lot of them were huge successes, particularly in the UK. Those by the time it was the late 70s, the UK really had embraced Jamaican music, and it was just really taken off. What are we talking about here? So what's your experience with Bob Marley? When did you first hear it? I know exactly when I first heard Bob Marley. And it wasn't even any of the songs that you would think that I would have heard, but I have to give credit where credit is due. So Melissa Munn, you are out there somewhere. You are the person that probably junior year in high school, it might have even been senior year, fall. I'm trying to remember, that was a long time ago, but I do know it was in an English class that we would talk about music, and we definitely were not interested in talking about Chaucer, and that's what we were reading. And that was terrible. So anyway, you introduced me to this album that we're talking about today, and that is the October 1974 record Natty Dread, my favorite Bob Marley record of all time. Their 7th album, his first one recorded without Bunny and Peter Tosh, Bunny Wailer, Peter Tosh. But this record is front to back my favorite record, as I said. It did very well in the UK, went to number 43. The United States, not so much, went to number 92. But later, Rolling Stone would call it the 181st out of 500 most important or best records of all time. So Melissa, thank you for that. I had never heard such music, and then we were off and running. By the time we get to college, everyone I knew was listening to some Bob Marley in some form. Of course, everybody had the Legend cassette, right? I mean, that thing was everywhere. And that was really all you needed. When you had Legend, you had it all. But if you go back and listen to some of those records, you find some really good stuff. So this particular record has Lively Up Yourself, No Woman, No Cry. Of course, those two songs are huge, right? But you got to really dig deep and listen to the rest of this record. Then Belly Full, love that song. Rebel Music, 3 O'Clock, Roadblock, awesome song. So Jase, same thing, love that song. Natty Dread, awesome. Bend Down Low, Talkin Blues, Revolution. I mean, I can't pick a favorite song very easily on this record. They're all good. So if you are a Bob Marley fan and you have not listened to Natty Dread from beginning to end, that is your job, should you choose to accept it today. So what am I doing for Song of the Day? I'm doing, it took me a little while. I had to listen to this record, which I did. That's why we're a little late this morning. But we're doing Talkin Blues for Song of the Day today. That's the one that edged out the others only by a hair. But Talkin Blues, Bob Marley. On a side note, we did see an author many years ago, Marlon James. He wrote a book called A Brief History of 7 Killings that is about the assassination attempt on Bob Marley in Jamaica. It was a pretty big deal. I started reading that book, and I'll probably have to go back to it, because if you've ever heard the dialect patois, which is hard enough to understand when you hear it, it turns out that reading it and understanding it is a lot more difficult as well. And this goes back and forth between views of people, and so it's really hard to follow. But I really want to get back to that book and continue reading it and kind of get to the end of that one. So if you're looking for something to read, something different, check that out. It is a little bit of a challenge, however. All right, we are at 7 minutes. Natty Dread is the record album. The song is Talkin Blues. Have a great Saturday. We got Slow Down Sunday tomorrow. Slow down. But Saturday we're doing some reggae today. Happy birthday, Bob Marley. Have a good one. And as usual, I'll catch you on the flip side.